Welcome back. Just 1 month after the tragic shooting at Newtown Elementary School, New York State passed a package of gun violence prevention measures, the strictest in the country. Many wondered how Governor Cuomo was able to do it and do it so quickly with the divided legislature. New York Times, in its piece that describes the process, called it the classic Cuomo formula, including threats to bombard reluctant Republican senators for months with an ongoing ad campaign. He also told Republicans that his internal polling data showed popular support for a tighter assault weapons ban. State Senator Tom Leibus of Binghamton said Cuomo, quote, wanted to get this done and he was push, push, push. In his effort, the governor also reportedly courted strategically, using his efforts to woo Simcha Felder, a Democrat from Brooklyn who had decided to align himself with the Republicans, the caucus at least, and the Independent Democratic Conference, and certainly it seemed to pay off. As all this wasn't enough, an early January poll found that more than 7 in 10 residents on Long Island supported an expanded ban on assault weapons. Long Island's got 9 of the 30 Republican senators in the state here. And Anthony, whatever he did, whatever arms he twisted, whatever threats he made, it worked here. And it was amazing how fast it got through.
It was leverage. I mean, people will criticize him maybe for being strong-armed, but he's not doing anything different than any other governor would do when they're trying to get legislation through. And, you know, he was able to utilize the fact that there was a divided government in the Senate to get everybody on board to pass this thing through. And most people, unfortunately, in this, after Newtown, they're not going to come up and say that they're against gun violence because they're against, you know, the shooting in Newtown.
He almost prefers there's a Republican state Senate control. I mean, you know how this whole thing got engineered here.
I will speak from experience, and I will say that the way that it was 2 years ago didn't work.
Yeah.
It's certainly working a lot better than it was, and divided government in a lot of ways can work out well.
David, how do Republicans answer, state Republicans answer, how so many of them voted for the strictest gun control legislation in the country here, when so many of them years ago would have been against it?
Well, look, Richard, the New York Times left one crucial thing out of their article about what he did to get this done. And make no mistake about it, the governor abused his constitutional authority in pressing for this bill. He called what's called a message of necessity, which is something that is reserved for the most urgent legislation before the Senate. And what that does is allow a particular bill to forego the constitutionally mandated 3-day waiting period. And if you look at the governor's history, he's done this.
You know, as you learn at TV, you got soundbite time. That's all true, but they still could have voted no, and they voted yes. And in the end of the day, these guys voted to go along, to get along. And I'm just curious, including Dean Skelos, who's supposed to be the boss of the Senate here, maybe that week at least. But my point is, how do they answer that?
Well, look, the characterization that this is a Republican bill or that, you know, Republicans were behind this is just false. This was a Democratic bill from a Democratic governor, strong-armed with total support from the Democratic Senate.
Majority leader went along with this and voted
and half of his caucus voted against it.
Okay. But still, they went for it.
And the majority of his caucus voted against it. There was opposition.
It's very easy. It's very easy. And you know what the answer is? There's a new sheriff in town, and his name is Andrew Cuomo.
And he has 75% approval rating.
And he has 75% approval rating. And this is why I'm saying you might get an assault weapons ban in Washington. Cuomo is no joke. And folks in Albany are terrified of Andrew Cuomo.
I'm appalled.
From Shelley Silver, from fellow Democrat Shelley Silver to Republican leaders. Appalled.
That you think this is leadership. This was easy politics. We live in one of the most liberal states. It was easy to get that. He's yelling about gun control, nothing about mental illness in there. And what about unfunded mandates? He's not doing the hard things in the state, but he's doing something that's very popular with the base and very popular emotionally. And it was very easy to bring.
Everything you said is right, except I get the press releases from the state Republican Party, okay? And I get the press releases from Dean Skelos, who is the senior member of one of the 3 men in the room, if you want to call him that. And he pointedly supported the president's, the governor's budget that went out there. So it's not just the base going along, the Republicans are too. All right. Now, next up, there's a documentary about former New York City Mayor, the one and only Ed Koch. The documentary reveals, among other things, that Koch thinks Andrew Cuomo, and these are his words, is a schmuck.
Whenever I would fly home, there was the city of New York laid out before me. And I thought to myself, this belongs to me.
In 1977, the city was on the verge of bankruptcy. Businesses were leaving, families were leaving, anybody who could leave would.
Good morning. I'm Ed Koch, and I'm running for mayor, and I need your help. How am I doing?
Here was a guy who really represented the rough and tumble of New York, and he was just haunted and damned by one hell of a personality.
Shut up, will you, and let me talk to these people?
I knew that of all those who were running, I knew more than they did.
There was a sense of momentum building. At the same time, so did the rumors.
There were signs in all the trains, vote for Cuomo, not the homo.
Why have you never married?
Well, I've always thought, wouldn't it be wonderful to be married in Gracie Mansion?
You have to get the attention of the public. You got to get them to follow you. And you can only do that by being bigger than life.
He's a national figure. What he says matters on everything.
The last time I was in a crowded elevator, I peed on the governor.
Koch has lived his life in the public.
Am I doing all right? Thank you. Hi, everybody.
That is his family. I think it's his oxygen.
The assumption was that mayors capitulate. Koch said no.
And it was a word that most New Yorkers had not heard before.
It doesn't move me. It doesn't change me.
In his third term, this is where the tide turned on.
We're dying. The city is dying.
There was no medication whatsoever, which was a total nightmare.
His government looked as corrupt as any government ever had.
I went into a state of depression.
He saw it all slipping away.
Well, they think I was a crook. I can't bear that.
He created a second life for himself. He's been a political force. He still enjoys the battle.
People would say, oh, you must run again, you must run again. And I would say, no, people threw me out, and now the people must be punished. And people love that. I still say it occasionally.
How am I doing?
How am I doing? Dominic, people ask me about him. I've interviewed him like you more than a few times. Is nobody really like him, is there?
No. And I've covered him for 25 years. I have to admit, Mr. Mayor, he is in a class by himself. I really do have to admit it.
One of the healthiest self-images I've ever seen. He's got an ego bigger than a room. Yeah.
And let me tell you, let's put it on the table, the question that everyone wants to know, sexual orientation. I've asked Rudy Giuliani the most intimate questions about his marriage. I won't dare go there with Ed Koch. And I don't know many journalists that will. You know why? Any journalist that asked him his sexual orientation, he will turn around, and I interviewed him every week for 4 years. Had dinner with him 2 months ago. He will turn around and say something extremely vulgar that I can't repeat on television and ask you about your personal life. So guess what? All of a sudden when you do, he'll say, did you ever? And you know, but he's one of a kind. He's not doing well right now. His health is not good, but he is a national figure. His opinion counts on almost everything. Imagine that.
And he's supported Republican candidates, Democratic candidates.
Say it again.
You know, there's a story that's in the documentary too that you know where he felt he helped get Andrew Cuomo elected. And Andrew Cuomo goes up to pay an impromptu visit to, and Andrew Cuomo won't see him or something's going on, and he'll never forget it. And he always, in the back of his mind, blamed Andrew Cuomo as a 19-year-old then campaign manager for his father for putting up those signs, vote for Cuomo, not the homo, which the film tackles as well. It's a complicated relationship, Koch and Cuomo, isn't it?
Yeah, politics is complicated, especially families. In New York City, as big as it is, it's pretty small when it comes to politics. And when it comes to rivalries like that, there are going to be issues, and they're like elephants, they never forget.
I don't know his act could play in another state here, but or another city for that matter, but still, definitely one of a kind. All right.
We wish him well.
Definitely wish him well. All right. Next we talk about Cory Booker, and believe it or not, if you think I'm recycling old stuff, this one's new. Once again, he breaks out the cape here and gets out of the phone booth, and he's off to a rescue. A bird, a plane, super mayor. In his ongoing quest to save Newark, one person at a time, the mayor, he has now saved a shivering dog from the cold. A reporter, just coincidentally, maybe that's the cynic in me, noticed the dog left out in the cold. She tweeted the mayor, and lo and behold, a few retweets and hours later, Booker on the scene, scooping up the dog, putting it into the back of a police car. Booker called the dog's owner and told them it was unacceptable to leave the pooch out in the freezing weather. Owner said that they were in Queens, they didn't know. Cha-Cha, can't make this up, had gotten out here. They thanked the mayor for saving the dog. Now, you may also say, I've heard this before, right? You would be right. Booker's also been known to save old women from burning buildings and also shoveling snow when the snow was, well, let's just say up to your ankles in it. All right, listen. There are rules of politics. Always kiss the baby, right? And always pose for the pictures and always give a firm handshake. Forgetting all this, this guy, Don's going to like him. But for me, it's amazing how always right place, right time when there's a camera. Is there a cynic there?
Well, Koch was very likable, and Booker's very likable.
Yes.
He's a likable guy.
Yeah.
You know what? And it may be self-serving, but the dog was freezing, and
Yes.
he picked up the dog. It was great. God bless him.
I'm one of you guys who believe he's the genuine Oracle, and I could see him in the corner laughing. All right? But he doesn't. I knew him before he was mayor. Doesn't drink, doesn't smoke here, doesn't curse, doesn't. He really is this guy. You'd love to have him in the GOP, wouldn't you? You could actually get him elected.
Hey, you know, I might not agree with a lot of what Cory Booker thinks politically, but you can't argue with saving a freezing dog or a woman from a burning house or shoveling snow when the weather's bad.
All right. Just think of a Republican. We can just say, all right, get ready. We're going to put a dog out there. You know, go save him. But I'm with you. All right, we take a quick break. When we come back here, we are going to talk about Sandy. And no, we all know the storm, but trust me, there is a narrative out there that the worst not only well behind us here, but now that the funding's been approved, everything's A-OK. You should think again. Thousands, tens of thousands of people in our region still in a really rough spot. We're going to go to Staten Island, where some still living in tents here with a freezing temps. An update on Superstorm Sandy when we come back.